Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this second presentation looking at artificial intelligence and the future of photography. As President of the Royal Photographic Society, it's my great pleasure to welcome an international audience and to introduce this event, which is being delivered in collaboration with Adobe. The format of the evening will be a presentation by our guest speaker of around 45 minutes, followed by a question and answer session for something like the same duration. So we're aiming to finish at about 8:30 UK time. For international audience, that's 8:30 evening. We're not going to be here at breakfast, that's for sure. Anyway, during the presentation, if you can put any questions into the chat stream, Michael and Yanina will corral those and we'll put those to our speaker during the Q&A session. Just need to tell you that the event is being recorded, and in a couple of days it will be available on the RPS AI hub, which is at rps.org/AI. So that's rps.org/AI. Anyway, as we've all seen in the national media, so many organisations and individuals have already pinned their colours to the mast of a particular, often very pessimistic position on artificial intelligence and photography. RPS members will have seen the recent statement from Dan Jones, our CEO, emailed to members earlier this week that established some guiding principles for the RPS, but which very much leaves the door open to an ongoing review of how and where artificial intelligence will impact the current and future practice and the public consumption of photography. To promote the debate to an audience beyond the RPS, we've already contributed to articles and programmes by national print and broadcast media. And events like this, like tonight's event, free to attend and open to all, allow the RPS, or allow our members and the wider public to engage with the art and science of what is an incredibly exciting time for the craft of photography. As a registered charity and as a membership organisation, it's the remit of the RPS to engage with and educate the public in the art and science of photography. No other organisation has this remit, and the RPS is uniquely placed to be at the vanguard of this debate. It really is an incredibly exciting time to be a photographer and a member of the RPS. When the French romantic painter Paul Delaroche first saw a photograph, probably a daguerreotype and likely to have been around 1839, he's reputed to have exclaimed that from today, painting is dead. How wrong he was. Photography did not kill painting, but freed it from the rigid guidelines of style and the hierarchy of genre imposed by the 19th century art establishment. Reading the sensationalist and often pessimistic headlines of the past few days, we can perhaps be forgiven for thinking that artificial intelligence will be the end of humanity, or at the very least, the end of human creativity. Just like the year 2000 bug in computing was going to cause a cataclysmic collapse of civilization when the clock struck midnight on the 31st of December 1999. Should we believe that from today photography is dead? I don't think so. Just as it was with painting in the 1830s and 40s, as it was with the year 2000 bug at the turn of the millennium, I think so it shall be with artificial intelligence today. Generative AI, generative artificial intelligence, is the type of AI that can create a wide variety of data, images, including those that look remarkably like photographs, movie film and video, audio, text, and 3D models. Generative AI will provide artists and other creatives with a completely new direction of travel. And in so doing, I firmly believe it will reinforce and reinvigorate the genres of photography. We might call it traditional photography, documentary, creative, pictorial, contemporary, scientific, portraiture, editorial, all of them. So in the audience this evening, we've got A-level photography students, we've got undergraduate photographers, postgraduates, hobbyist and enthusiast photographers, fine art photographers, professional photographers and imaging scientists, journalists, curators, historians, and we've got at least one nationally celebrated illustrator. The one thing that connects all of us is that we use digital technology in our visual arts and our craft. And somewhere in that workflow, we more than likely use applications from Adobe. But of course, in the interests of complete impartiality, I must stress that other applications are available. The world is not an Adobe world. So with that said, it's my pleasure to welcome Rufus Deuchler, who, I'm sure I've got your name wrong there, Deuchler, sorry, Rufus Deuchler, who has what must be one of the most impressive job titles in the industry. Rufus is Adobe's worldwide Creative Cloud Evangelism Director, and we're indebted to him for agreeing to evangelize to us this evening. So I hope Rufus will start his presentation by telling us exactly what an evangelism director does, before he discusses how Adobe thinks about generative AI, how it implements AI in its applications, particularly in the current beta version of Photoshop, and importantly, how something called the Content Authenticity Initiative, founded by Adobe, the New York Times, and Twitter in 2019, seeks to provide a standard through which we can all trace the origin, and therefore we hope the authenticity of different types of media, particularly those that mimic the styles and conventions of photography and moving image. So Rufus, over to you. We're ready to be evangelized.
Thank you so much, Simon. And hello to all the 368 people who are watching right now. And thank you so much for joining us. Well, like Simon said, my name is Rufus Deuchler. Actually, I did my A-levels in Somerset. So you were talking about A-level students before, and these are very great memories from my time in England. And then I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts at the Art Center College of Design in Europe and in Pasadena. Then I opened my own design agency in Florence, where I still live after 30 years. Adobe employed me. It didn't really matter where I was, because as I will explain in just a second, as Simon asked me to explain what my job is. After 30 years, I'm still in Florence, and I'm a designer, I'm a photographer, I'm a painter. Actually, this is the reason I came to Florence 30 years ago, is to start a little bit of oil painting. Today, actually, let me just answer Simon's question about evangelism. Evangelism really is about being together with the creative community, whether that's the photo community, or the design community, or the illustration community, and really reaching out and getting feedback from the community, working with the community. And you will see a lot of examples today of how we think of community and how community engagement is important. And evangelism in pre-COVID basically meant that I was traveling 270 days a year, showing Adobe products, showing how we think to audiences all across the world. And my team is based in the US right now, but I'm expanding very, very quickly. And those of you who want to follow me, my handle is Rufus D. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. So feel free to join there as well if you have any follow-up questions after this talk. So today we're going to be talking about generative artificial intelligence. And to address that subject, which of course is a very controversial topic, and it's creating a lot of division in the art world. But I think, as Simon says, there are tremendous opportunities for everyone here to really leverage those new technologies, which are evolving at an incredibly rapid pace, to actually help us be more creative. And to do that, I will do three things. I will talk a little bit about how we at Adobe think about artificial intelligence. That's actually 13 slides. Those of you who hate slides, they can count them. And then I will move on to basically our sandbox, our showcase of technology, which is called Firefly. And I'll give you a little tour of Firefly, which is actually a tool which is web-based and accessible to everyone to use. You don't necessarily have to have a Creative Cloud subscription to actually play in the Firefly playground. Then we'll move to real life examples inside of Photoshop using the Photoshop beta, and I will be showing you where to get it and how you can start trying it out. And the main thing really that I want to convey today is that artificial intelligence can actually assist us and become our creative co-pilot. So let me move on to the slides. Let me see here. Where are they? I need to go here and share and go into slideshow. Is everyone seeing the slide?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So basically, AI and the future of photography. I was thinking about that a lot in the past days. And, you know, photography is photography. And AI generated images are not photography, but they are an incredible tool that allows us to finesse our images, to change the storytelling a little bit. And the way, okay, does it work here? Let me see. Okay. At Adobe, we actually have a legacy of about 10 years of AI innovation that we introduced in our applications. And I will be showing some of those inside of Photoshop later on. Artificial intelligence basically is, you know, it's not even intelligent. It's just as intelligent as the programmers, the engineers that have written the code. Basically, it's just very, very good algorithms that do something, that make our life as creative professionals easier. Another thing that I want to note is that we follow very rigid AI ethics principles at Adobe, you know, which includes accountability, responsibility, and full transparency of how we are working with artificial intelligence. And we think of artificial intelligence as the next evolution of AI-driven creativity and productivity. Basically, creativity for us is the new productivity. You know, like in the past 20 years, productivity, it was all about productivity, produce, produce, produce. And we firmly believe that now is a time where actually creativity is becoming the new productivity, and allowing us creatives to have more possibilities to express that creativity. And we also want to transform the conversations between the creator on all levels of skills, from beginners to professionals, the conversations that they have with the software and their hardware to create something new. And like I said before, what we truly believe in is that AI can actually bring creative confidence to people who are just starting, because it is maybe quicker to achieve something that is pleasing to the eye, that actually works, and that can be shared, that can be discussed with the creative community. Basically, being a co-pilot for creativity. Just as an example about these legacy AI before generative AI, like all these things that you see here in Adobe Lightroom, like auto-tone, enhanced details, super resolution, denoise, and the ability to choose the best photos automatically in a set of 300, for example, or face detection. These are all things based on artificial intelligence. Basically, there's algorithms in the background that actually look at, for example, the best photos feature is a feature that in Lightroom allows you to go through a big shoot that you've just finished and automatically take out the best pictures, you know, based on light, based on composition, based on quite a few different things that help you go quicker to define, you know, what are the good pictures in this set of 300 that I just did. So there is already a lot of artificial intelligence in our applications. Let's talk about the Adobe Firefly beta. And basically, Firefly is our collection of generative AI tools that we are implementing in various applications. And basically, the way we built Firefly is to be safe for commercial use. And I will be explaining a little bit more about that in a second. And the first model of Firefly was trained on hundreds of millions of Adobe stock images, openly licensed content and public domain content where the copyright has expired. And this is what makes Firefly safe for commercial use. Although you cannot use it for commercial use right now because, you know, it's still in beta, and when using the beta, the user also agrees that it is not for commercial use, but it is designed to be safe for commercial use, basically guaranteeing that none of the images that we've trained upon are actually copyrighted or include an artist's name or a style or anything like that. We're going to be, actually, we already have, since the launch of Firefly, we have brought Firefly into Adobe Express, into Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. And we're also thinking about various ways of how to use Firefly in other applications as well. Our vision for Firefly is always around the creators. It's always around, you know, our core customers. We are all creators. We're using those tools to actually create images, to create illustrations, to create movies, to create sound. And we're exploring ways where users will also be able to actually train Firefly on their own images. So basically, and that doesn't mean that once you've trained Firefly with your own images that everybody will have access to it. No, no, no. We're thinking about ways to allow you to train Firefly with your images, with your style, to explore other variations or new ideas in your own style. And we're also exploring ways where perhaps a user on Behance could sell their style for an X amount of images, or maybe it's a subscription model that a photographer or an illustrator has trained Firefly on their art and actually gets remunerated from the usage that people make of their style. And basically, we're also, because we've trained on Adobe stock heavily, we're also, of course, trying to find a way to compensate Adobe stock contributors. All of these things will be made public once Adobe Firefly gets out of beta, which shouldn't be long, actually. Then the other thing, and I will talk about this a little bit more because this is super important, is the content credentials that we attach to anything that is created with Adobe Firefly or this generative AI. You can see there on the right, there's a little window that can pop up that says this content was generated using an AI tool. And basically, we're using our content authenticity initiative to actually tag these, and these are tamper-proof tags that photographers, illustrators can actually put into their work to actually have the information about the provenance of the work, of how it was created and who owns it, what images were put together. And we're automatically attaching these credentials to any image that is created with Adobe Firefly. And we're also thinking about enabling creators to actually tag their images with a tag that says, do not train. Like, I don't want anyone to train on my images or my photos or my illustrations. So there's a whole lot of things that we're doing to actually protect intellectual property and to allow everyone to feel safe about it and to feel good about it. So the paradigm that has changed really is, before all of this happened, you know, we trusted an image and then chose to verify it if we wanted to. What needs to happen now is that we need to verify the image first and then trust the image. And I will be showing a few examples of how these content credentials work inside of a photo, for example, or something that is generated with artificial intelligence. There's over 1,000 members already in the Content Authenticity Initiative. And you see there's camera makers, there's generative AI solutions, there's media, there's hardware, there's imaging software. But you'll also see that there's 2 question marks. we would really want social media and phone makers to start participating in this operation as well. And because it's super interesting for the cameras, for example, Nikon, Fuji, Leica, Sony, and Canon, they're implementing the content credentials the second you shoot your image. And that's already the starting point of this content credential line of information that follows the image while it's navigating through the internet, while it's being published. So these content credentials, and you see another example here, are it's basically metadata that are in the images, in audio, in video, and it provides attribution to the content. So, for example, if you shoot that picture, automatically your name, your information, of course, it's always something that you choose to do. Okay, we're not forcing anybody to add attribution to any type of content. But I think in future, we will trust content that has attribution a little bit more, because we can follow how this image was produced. Maybe it was a raw image in the beginning, and so we know if I can see the raw image, I know this is tamper-proof, and I can see how it has been manipulated, what other images have been put into it. And basically, that builds trust. And it also safeguards enterprises, you know, to protect their own brands. And in the example on the right, you see an example again of something that was created with Adobe Firefly. It tells you the version. And that's something that's super important, because the version of Firefly also means which data set was used to create that specific image. And I will show you in Firefly in a second, but basically, once you download a file in Firefly, this window will pop up, and it actually applies these content credentials directly to the image. All of this, and this is something that I mentioned at the very beginning, we want to work with the community to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and to make sure that we can all agree that this technology is safe for commercial use, that we feel good about it, and that we're not scared of anything that comes with it. So of course, there's a public beta. Anybody can join. All you need is a free Adobe ID to go check out Firefly. And basically, all we ask is experiment, try it out, see what is possible, and how these tools slowly move into our applications inside of the Creative Cloud. And the reason Firefly is unique, you know, compared to all of the other artificial intelligence solutions, is that it's, again, safe for commercial use, because we're not infringing any copyright at all. It's trained on high quality assets. It's not just images from the web. It is high resolution images from Adobe Stock, for example. And we're integrating that into workflows that we already know. For example, Photoshop or Lightroom or Illustrator or Adobe Express, for that matter. And we're advocating for transparency through content credentials. All right, let's move on to Firefly. And I'm gonna share a new window here. And let's move to the browser and share that. This is our playground. This is where we showcase what our artificial intelligence can do. And there's a whole bunch of things that we can try here. There's a gallery, there's favorites that you have saved, there's information about Firefly itself, and frequently asked questions. But what we have right now is text to image, of course, generative fill, text effects, and something that was added just last week, actually, is generative recolor, which allows me to very quickly recolor our Illustrator artwork inside of Illustrator to try out, you know, new color schemes. For example, I want my illustration to have the tones of a summer sunset. I can type that in, and it'll change the colors in my Illustrator file to match those. And then and I always find this super interesting, is all of these things that are in exploration. For example, 3D to image. Place a 3D object and then create an image based on a prompt, or extend image. We will see that in Photoshop, actually how it works. And there's a video there that you can all watch, personalized results to actually teach Firefly what it is that we want, text to vector, text to pattern, text to brushes. That's super cool for illustrators to actually create brushes on the fly using text prompts, or sketch to image, or text to template. There's a whole bunch of things that we want to do with Firefly. So let's go through them very quickly. This is text to image, and the way I always like to start here is to actually take an image and see how it was made. You see, as you hover over these images, it'll actually give you the prompt. And the cool thing is that Firefly works with simple prompts. You can make complex prompts if you want, but typically a very simple phrase will actually tell Firefly what it needs to do. All of the others, these generative AI technologies, are actually pretty complicated for somebody who's not trained on computer or the web or internet technology to actually create something out of nothing in that case. And I think Adobe Firefly really makes it easy for anyone to create and to actually democratize what generative AI actually is. Anybody can have a go and try it out and very simply create something. Let me see if there's something that sparks my imagination here. All of those images, of course, were created using Firefly. A castle in the middle of the desert, sunset, rolling sands, wide angle. Okay, let's try this prompt. So now we're inside of the text to image interface, and we're still inside of Firefly, of course. And I can very quickly change the aspect ratio. I like widescreen for this image, for example. And the Firefly will recalculate everything based on that new aspect ratio. While it's doing that, you can also see that there's a whole bunch of buttons there that I can use to, to create digital art or neon or chaotic styles, or based on movements like steampunk or minimalism or cyberpunk, baroque, cubism. One thing you will never see is an artist's name in Firefly. Actually, if I use a copyrighted term in my search, for example, if I put in Mickey Mouse in a field of flowers, Firefly will not understand what Mickey Mouse is. So it will not be able to create a Mickey Mouse. It'll maybe create a mouse that it's inside of a field of flowers, but it will not be able to understand a brand or something that is copyrighted. I can also choose from various themes. I like hyper realistic, and you see these themes are now added down here. I can choose various techniques, effects, materials, or various concepts. Let's add nostalgic to that. And then color and tone. I can decide what type of tones I want. I want vibrant color, and maybe the lighting should be, I like the golden hour. That's something that I really like in these digitally created images. And let's keep the wide angle. So basically, I've added all of these inside of my in my styles down here under the prompt, and maybe I can add to the style with a river in the foreground. Generate. Now it will take all of these things that I've asked for and regenerate that image. The way this artificial intelligence works is, of course, based on all of the images that we have in our data set, right? So, and all of these images have text descriptions. So we know more or less what's inside of those images. And the artificial intelligence takes bits and pieces from everywhere and puts them together to actually recreate something that, in this case, with a river in the foreground, at the golden hour. And I can then take that and do a whole bunch of stuff with it. I can create variations on this one, which I like very much. Let's see what happens. I can also go directly to generative fill. We'll do that in a second. I have options for that. I can submit that to the Firefly gallery. I can download it. We're going to do that in a second too. I can favorite it, so I can find it in my favorites, so I can have access to it at a later date. And super important in this beta phase is to actually help us rate the result. Is there a result that you're happy with? Tell us, okay? And you can tell us more. Or you can report an image. If there's an image that was created that is problematic, or that creates a sense that you didn't ask for, report it. It will help us understand how to tweak the engine and to make it work better. So for example, here I can go into the second thing that was on the Firefly homepage, which is the generative fill. And again, this is something that everybody can play with without having a Creative Cloud subscription. So for example, I can say, I want here, I want to have some, I don't know, seagulls, and generate those. Basically in these 3 dots that I've just created, basically these 3 selections. Firefly is thinking, and it will present to me a few variations that I can choose from. Like this or this. Oh, I like these ones. Or maybe I can say here, let me put here, let's keep that and continue painting here. And I'm gonna put here a palm tree. Palm tree, let's generate that. So basically none of this existed just a few minutes ago. And it allowed me to very quickly have an idea to generate something, something that was in my mind that I wanted to see. And I could do that very, very quickly. And this is particularly important for people who are starting. You all remember when you were starting, the struggle of getting to something that could give you, a good feeling about what you did. And this technology really allows us to do just that. And I can take, let's see, which I like this palm tree here. So let's keep that one. And let's download this image. And basically, this is the part where the Content Authenticity Initiative comes in. When basically this image will have metadata embedded in it that will follow that image and say exactly how that image was made. And these will be included in that tamper-proof metadata. Basically, it's metadata that you kind of just go in and change. Okay, maybe you can remove the metadata. Yes, that's always possible, but then it will lose all of the content credentials. It wouldn't be trustworthy anymore. All right. So basically, that's the idea behind content authenticity, right? It's to create that trust between your viewer and the content that they're viewing. So let's continue. And basically, it's applying the content credentials and downloaded it to my desktop. And then I can use it. And if I go, can I see it on my desktop? Let's open that for a second. Actually, show me in Finder. But now, well, I probably can't switch screen. But anyway, it'll also have a watermark saying that it was made with Firefly and that it cannot be used for commercial use. Let's go back to Firefly itself. The last thing, well, we tried this one, right? The generative fill. But again, here you can upload your own images to generative fill and try things out. I like, working with this example. Let me see. Maybe I want another type of lighthouse. So basically, a brick lighthouse instead of this one. Generate. And let's see what Firefly comes back with. All right, now I have my brick lighthouse, okay? And then maybe I can say, that here, let's keep that one. And I say, okay, let's down here, I want a, I don't know, cruise ship. Let's not make typos here, and generate. And again, inside of that area, Firefly will generate a few cruise ships. And if I'm not happy with any of them, I can always ask Firefly to generate more. Okay, but these are pretty cool cruise ships that I have just added like this, just going with the flow of my imagination. Last thing in the playground that I wanted to show. Oh, and I'm also mindful of time. Is this one here? You know, text styling. So, for example, if I want to create something, I don't know, out of pink balloons, and we can say we're going to have like an RPS party later. So I can put that text in and make a text made out of balloons with RPS. I can also choose to, I can choose the font that I want to use. I can also have it on a transparent background and export it as a PNG. Again, it'll have the Firefly content credentials, and you know, there's a few possibilities here that I can choose from. But again, it is something that we've introduced now a couple of weeks ago into Adobe Express, the ability to generate images and to also generate these text effects. While it's doing that, let's move on to the content authenticity initiative. And yes, feel free to copy the link here. It is, let me just move this window a second. Here we go. Content-authenticity.org. Like I said, also like Simon said at the beginning, this is an initiative that was started by Adobe, Twitter, and the New York Times to actually create that environment where content credentials are part of modern workflows to build trust in what people see online. And here you can see all of the information. You can also see who already joined the content authenticity initiative. There's actually an example of the tamper-proof provenance metadata that is added to the images. But more importantly, it also allows you to verify. There is go to verify here, and I have it open already. And basically, this allows you to upload an image. I can inspect a new file, and basically what this will do, it'll allow me to upload any file that I have and look at the content credentials. But let's look at those examples that they have here. So for example, here, there's version changes to that image. Let's inspect this image and see how the content credentials were applied there. This is familiar now. This is the basic content credentials of how the image was produced. There's information about the author, the Behance profile, maybe the Instagram and Twitter handles, the way it was produced with Adobe Photoshop, and the edits and activities that happened to that image. And to create that image, we actually see that it's all started with an Adobe stock image and a landscape JPEG and another file name. And all of these came together to create that new image. So the question often comes like, how do we make sure that things that are sent to competitions, photo competitions, for example, how can we be sure that they are not created with generative AI? Well, this is one way that it could be, because this first image here could actually be the raw file. Okay, and then of course, there's many things that a photographer does to the image, but there is always a certainty that there was a raw file at the very beginning that actually tells us, yes, that picture was actually taken by such and such a person. All right. So I'll move on to Photoshop, and let's make a new share here. and move to Photoshop. And I'm going to start with a few examples of AI that that is not necessarily generative AI. One thing, for example, is sky replacement that we've added. Maybe last year. Yes, sky replacement was beginning of last year. Under Edit, I can go into sky replacement, and this is also AI that actually does a whole bunch of things. It actually finds out where the sky is in that image. And let me of course, this is the sky that was in my picture. It was a gray day. It wasn't very interesting. But with this tool, with sky replacement, I can actually upload my own skies. Maybe I have a whole bunch of skies that are really beautiful, or maybe even from the same region of the world, that I can use to make that picture more interesting. And let's see, maybe let's add this very dramatic sky here and see how that works on this image. Okay. I need to turn on the preview, of course. There we go. All right. And then, of course, I can go in here and actually make sure that, maybe the sunset is right here. All right. Is that a photograph? I'm not sure anymore, right? I mean, yes, there is an original picture that I took. I know I took it. I just made it more beautiful by using another type of sky. And I have a whole bunch of things that I can do here with sky replacement. Another interesting thing is, and I'm going to cancel out of that, is under Window, there's this content credentials beta thing that actually tells you, enable content credentials for this image. All right. So if I enable content credentials, it'll actually start recording things that I do to that image, what other images I'm putting in, what's happening to that image. And this information will then be part of the image in the metadata. And when I verify it, I can see exactly how these images were put together, making it more trustworthy. Yes, this is my final image. The sky is more beautiful, but this is not the original photo. Okay, and I can preview. This is how my content credentials look like. The title of the image. It was made with Photoshop. I can link my social media. I linked my my Behance, for example, etc. So basically, this is how it all starts. All right, in Window, content credentials beta. Please try it out. Try it out on your own images, and then go to have them verified on the Content Authenticity website. So we are now in the Photoshop beta, which everyone can download directly from their Creative Cloud application. But before I go into generative fill, which is really the killer feature here, I just wanted to show a little bit of the neural filters here, because these are also artificial intelligence. And basically, there's a whole bunch of things here. There's some filters that are still in beta, but there's ways to actually to enhance an image, to avoid that when making it bigger, it becomes too pixelated. And the artificial intelligence knows how to place pixels so that the image looks good, even if I up-res it. Or I can remove JPEG artifacts, or I can do photo restoration. I can add depth blur to images. Try those out as well. These are not per se generative AI solutions, but they are definitely AI-driven plugins. Let's move on to this image here. Let me just cancel out of these filters here, and let's move on to this image here. So this is a typical example of a portrait, and maybe the art director really wanted something more, doesn't like that that close up. So what I can do now, and now we're going into the realm of generative fill, I can simply use my crop tool here and add space around it. Let's put it like this, for example. Then with my selection tool, I will simply select the area and inverse the selection. So it takes everything, all the white part, right? And this new tool here, which is the how is it called? Just I'm losing myself. Let me just go here into window. It's called the, no, I'm lost. Anyway, this bar here, you will see it in the new version of Photoshop, and basically it is context sensitive. So whatever you're trying to do right now, it'll try to anticipate what you're trying to do and help you go to there quickly. In here, we want to do generative fill. I'm going to leave it empty for now. I'm not telling this image anything. I just want to generate whatever is missing out of that image in the background. Let's let Firefly do its magic. Basically, it's understanding how this image works. What is the foreground? What is the background? And let's see the result. Boom. In seconds, I was able to extend that image, get the hair of that person, which I didn't have in my original image, and I have a whole bunch of variations here that I can choose from. Maybe there's one that works better. If there's none that work well, I can always say regenerate. Another thing I can do, for example, in this image, I can say select this area here, and I'm doing that with the object selection tool. Okay, so it did that. It selected the shirt. Perfect. I'm going to expand that selection, let's say by 20 pixels, so it goes out a little bit. And I'm going to add generative fill. Maybe for my magazine or for that specific photo shoot, I need that person to have a business shirt. Generate. And now I have a prompt, right? I prompted the Firefly to actually give that person a business shirt. Let's see what comes out of that. And interestingly enough, in Photoshop, all of these become generative layers. They actually, that's not a very good example. Let's see this one here. Okay, the shoulders are a little bit weird, but yeah, I'm not very convinced about that, but I could just regenerate the image until I get the result that I want. But with a few clicks, I was able to add to that person's head, to extend the image, and to actually change their clothing. Another example, of course, is tourist removal. Okay, so basically there were several ways that we could do that in the past as well. And I'm just going to very roughly select that person here, and I'm going to select the shadows here as well, because I want to get rid of those. Something like that. There was under edit, actually there still is, which is content aware fill. And basically what content aware fill does, this is before Firefly, it actually analyzes the pixels in the image. Actually, let's do it. It'll actually open a new window and actually tell me what exactly it's looking at to recreate the pixels in this area. The thing is, if I zoom into here, you will see that, it doesn't get the steps right. I mean, it doesn't understand the steps. And that's where Firefly comes in, because I can do the exact same thing. Let's cancel out of this with the same selection. I'm going to use generative fill. And again, I don't want anything else in there. I just want, whatever should be there if I remove that person. So let's generate that. And again, differently from the previous example, it tries to understand, what is this? Oh, these are steps, these are stones. And there was a shadow there. Let's see how we can recreate all of that without having, it really recreated. Let me zoom in here, and it really got the steps right this time. I think this is pure magic that is only possible with generative AI, and it made it so easy for me to just do that. Let's go to another example. I had this photo of a room, maybe, and I take my rectangular tool here and I say, maybe here I want generative fill, potted tree. Okay, generate. And Firefly understands the composition of the image. It understands the perspective. It understands everything about this image and recreates something that wasn't there before. Something like that, or like that, or like that. And I can add things very, very quickly. For example, let's see here, let's put here, generative fill. And I know I'm going over time. I want all the time we need for questions. Sleeping dog, for example. Generate. And again, Firefly will put a sleeping dog in that area, respecting the perspective, the position of the planks and everything. Oh, there we go. That's maybe a small dog, but let me see if there's other types. Oh no, that's actually a pretty cool one. Okay, this one is sleeping. Let's keep this one. All right. So very, very quickly, I was able to add to those images. So the things I can do in Photoshop now is extend images. I can replace stuff in images, and I can place new stuff into images. So my ask from all of you is to really have fun, to experiment, to be in the know. What's happening with AI? How does it work? And join the community and continue to be immensely creative with these new tools that are at our disposal and see where they can actually lead us. And I think we can all agree on one thing. Generative AI is not photography, all right? But it is one hell of a tool for photographers that they can use in their everyday workflows to make their life easier, faster, and to come to better solutions quickly. And with the content credentials attached to all of that, we build trust with our audience because we're actually transparent with how we created that image. And with that, my friends, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go right back to Simon and see if there's any questions that I can answer. Whoa, that was a roller coaster ride.
We've got questions.
Okay.
We've got loads. There's still people coming into the room. I think amazing. We've still got 378 people on the call, on the Zoom here. I'm thankful to Janina and Michael for corralling the questions and sending them through to me. So we've got three broad areas, but before I do, I mean, thank you, Rufus, for a fascinating overview of where we are with AI in the Adobe suites. Absolutely amazing. I can't wait to get started. Well, I'm a little bit started with it, but I want to get more into it now. I've seen some of the potential. So if we can go straight into the questions, there are three broad areas. Firstly, the most popular is content credentials.
Yes.
Then justifying a piece of work as being an artist's own work, and then to the future. So if we tackle them in that order. But before I do, I'll just tell you the tourist removal tool has got a lot of thumbs up. It's probably going to be the biggest feature of
I even showed a very simple example. You can see examples online from my colleague Terry White and other photographers that making a huge selection of people on Piazza San Marco in Venice, and boom, suddenly it's empty. Yeah,
really. So we don't have to get up quite so early then to get some marks.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay, first question then. If I tag something I've created as not to train, is that image then protected, or is it just a recommendation to another user?
Well, this is something, like I said, this is something we're working on, this ability to add that tag. But the intention really is that, I mean, we certainly won't be using it. If once we implement that tag, and if the image is tagged as do not train, Adobe will not train on that image. All right. I cannot guarantee for all of the others, but our vision is that, yes.
Okay. All this extra metadata then to sort of justify the image, is that irrelevant if Adobe guarantees that all source material is copyright free in the first place? So adding a copyright free image to a copyright free image, it's still a copyright free image.
That's a good question. And basically, I think there's a distinction to be made here. So first of all, the first examples I've shown are things made with Firefly, right? So basically, it is images that a few minutes ago didn't exist. So basically, I just created something entirely new using generative AI and created something. And what content credential goes into that image is simply that this image was created with generative AI. Okay, so this is information for the viewer. Okay, this is not a real image. This is generated with AI. The other workflow is maybe I start with my own raw image and make corrections to it and maybe add something to it. And that story is a different story because I can have inside of my content credentials my original image, what it was, and then all of the things that came together to make the image that I'm presenting to the viewer. All right. And that's so in both cases, I think content credentials are super important because they allow the viewer to understand a little bit more about the provenance of the image.
Okay, what's to stop someone rephotographing a generated image, a generated AI image in RAW in their camera and then pass it off as a photo and fool the verification?
Well, nothing. I think that is that I would consider that as being very fraudulent. But wouldn't you be able to see from the raw image that it's from, it's an image taken from another image, like from the quality of the image, I mean? Okay. I think so, yeah.
Another question here. Be interested to see the content credentials for an image that's been through several software packages. For example, if it's gone straight out of the camera, gone into Photolab 6, then Lightroom, then Photoshop, then Nick.
Of course, and this is why we're looking to partner with as many providers as possible. I mentioned camera makers, I mentioned software makers, I mentioned other generative AI players. And if we all participate in this initiative, this metadata will travel easily between applications. Of course, if I open that image in another image application, like that's not Photoshop or Lightroom, and also ask all the metadata to go, I can do that. I probably can do it in Photoshop to say I want to save it without metadata. And there's various reasons why one would want to do that. For example, to keep the image smaller in size in megabytes. But what's then missing from that image is that provenance information, right? So basically, like I said in my slides, we need to go from, like verify first and then trust, all right? And if something is verified and you've seen the little eye that appears on images, that we see on the web, this actually builds trust in the viewer because it says, okay, I can check the provenance of that, whatever content, whether it's music or photo or illustration.
But there are software packages that are EXIF editors. So I can bring a raw picture into Image EXIF editor and change the EXIF data.
I know.
If what you're saying is the images that come out of Firefly are tagged with EXIF data. If that EXIF data is editable and a picture editor picks it up and says, okay, it's all verified, but it's fake.
No, so I can stop you very quickly on that because the metadata that's the content provenance metadata is tamper-proof. Okay, so there's bits and pieces around that make it, if you change anything in that type of metadata, it will simply not work anymore. Okay, basically it's like the metadata is not there. So yes, an EXIF data, of course, is something that that contains much more information about, how it was shot, how it was, about the author and whatever you want to put in that EXIF data, the caption maybe. So that is additional EXIF data.
Okay, last question on this content credentials section. Who owns the copyright in the generated image created? And do the credentials disclose the creativity of the person generating the image so that they are the named copyright holder? I've
So
phrased a long
yeah,
question.
I showed a little bit of how, you know, like once you create the environment that that puts this content provenance inside of your images, whether illustrations or photographs, you actually can add a whole bunch of things like your Behance profile, your name, your all of these things. So basically, this is information that can travel with the image inside of that. Inside of these content credentials, but also, of course, in the rest of the EXIF metadata. So the copyright, of course, is always from the photographer. You know, and if you generate an image from zero, like we did in Firefly, that might be a good question, like who owns the copyright of that? And I think at Adobe, we believe that whoever created the image should actually own the copyright. But then, of course, it's always a matter of if you want to register the copyright about a specific image and things like that. It depends country by country, but it is up to the individual to then say, okay, I want to put my copyright on such and such an image. Adobe will never claim copyright over images that were created with that technology.
Yeah, in the UK, you don't have to formally register something as being copyrighted to you. It is automatically copyright if you've created it, and I think there are seven headings under which material can be copyrighted. But this generative AI is using learning from other people's imagery and bringing that into a new image at somebody's text command.
Yes.
So are we saying that it's still a grey area of where copyright is held, or are you saying that Adobe's view is absolutely the person who wrote that text prompt is the copyright holder?
Absolutely, because
quite a statement.
Yes, because the image was generated on the fly. It's not the way generative AI works. It's not like it takes pictures from. It takes the pictures and puts them together, right? It actually, they call it hallucinating. They call it like recreating something based on the text prompt, of course. Like, what does a castle look like? Okay, let's try this. Okay, they're not like, none of the images I created before is actually a castle that somebody photographed, and they put that castle on my image with the desert and maybe the river. None of that was photographed. Okay, it's just the training model is really about understanding what elements in the image mean something, and then try to recreate a new image based on that text prompt.
Okay, because in the UK, the Intellectual Property Office is still sort of mulling this over and trying to get some sort of guidelines out for this. Whereas in the US, it's a little bit more advanced in that I think the US has legislated that because this is machine generated, these works, these creative works, are machine generated and not the work of an individual artist's hand, they can't be copyrighted. Is that your understanding of it? And do you agree with it?
I don't necessarily agree with the fact that they should be copyrightable, because there's nothing that prevents people from doing it except a law and a regulation. I know the EU has been very on the forefront of creating laws for generative AI just in the past few weeks, and basically they're asking for transparency also from the manufacturers, like Adobe, for example. Like, what is the training model? Like, how do you guarantee this and this and this? All of these things always come back to transparency. And I think, like I said before, the way we think about it is to make anything you create with that technology commercially viable, and never go into the risk of infringing anyone's copyright ever. Okay, so this is how we're thinking about it. And you know, like, of course, every country will have their own laws about, you know, what it means, how much, you know, how much content was actually generated by a machine, but by which model. You are right. It's a very complex thing that, you know, that lawyers and governments and many people need to learn very, very quickly. Yes.
So a very simple question then. Do you think that the input of the human operator of the computer that's putting in the prompt meets the definition of artist who has created the work? Is that your view or Adobe's view or both?
Yeah, so maybe you've noticed that I've never called it computer generated art or generative photography or anything like that. For me, it's the creation of an image. And that image basically is an opportunity for whoever the creator is to tell a story, okay? But for me, it is not art. For me, it is not photography. For me, it is not. It's not something that you know, that a human could not create. Let's put it that way. And I'm pretty sure that in the future we'll also see you know, a tag appearing that something was made by a human. You know, like made by humans. You know.
That'll be the exception rather than the rule, then.
Exactly. Yes. No,
okay.
There will be.
Sorry. Well, let's move on now, away from the sort of domains of the courts and legal niceties, and look at the artist's work in competition, in submissions to magazines, and importantly for the RPS, in distinctions, the awards that we give for photographic ability, photographic merit. And the question here is, what if a photographer uses a small portion of an image, say an eye, from somewhere else, in their own image? What's the balance of credit for that photograph being by the photographer or by the person who created the photograph of the eye?
So, Simon, I think this is something that's happened, you know, since people have, you know, started
montage is really
carving things in a cave, or Renaissance paintings, or, you know, Stalin removing people from his entourage on a picture, you know, and basically when Photoshop was launched in you know, what was it, late 80s, early 90s, you know, in the news it was all about, you will never be able to trust an image again, even though it was very, very rough, you know, like really, like you could actually see that something was being done with the image. All of that has changed, and you know, I think when it comes to competitions and things like that, I would look at, you know, of course, the image, the storytelling behind the image, the what it makes me feel. So the artistic value of the image, but increasingly also ask for additional information about the image. For example, you know, maybe see the raw file, you know, or like see exactly where it started and where it ended, and that would give people. Yeah.
That your answer is leading on in the same way that I've tried to sort of put these questions into a hierarchy as they came in. So the next question then, is there a way, or do you think there could be a way, to embed a photographer's original out of camera, straight from camera, raw image into a modified file, maybe a stack of images, so that whoever's looking at those images can go back to the raw material and say, right, that was the originating image, and look what he or she or they have done to this to make it something else.
So of course, you know, this always comes back to this concept of transparency. You know, like I'm all about sharing my knowledge and sharing things. Like I know there's people who don't like to share of exactly how they did things, but in Photoshop, for example, I can create a smart layer, a smart object with the raw file in it. And that could be sent around, and so people could actually see, okay, oh, that's the original image, boom, open it in raw, because a raw image only opens in RAW or in Lightroom. Check that and then see what was added to it inside of the Photoshop file. Or with the content credentials, I can see like the story and see that it all started with a raw image, and that raw image could be provided.
Okay, there's questions are still coming in, and maybe it will be 8:30 breakfast rather than 8:30 evening. So where were we? Right, the next one then, just building on this hierarchy. Will the metadata be able to say what percentage of the original image remains unaltered and what percentage has been generated? And the question then is to the RPS to say, if that's possible, will there become a measure by which if you're submitting to an RPS competition or a distinction, your images must be at least 80% your own work and then 20% can be generated?
Yes. No, right now there is no such technology. There is no way of saying exactly how many pixels are fake and how many pixels are real. I mean, then again, nothing is real and fake. It's an amalgamation of pixels. But that's actually a good idea. And I think I've seen tools around, not Photoshop or Adobe, but tools that allow to see how much was changed in an image and make like heat maps in those images and show exactly which pixels were modified. So that could be a solution to that.
And you say that exists now, does it? Or?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right. And would you, or would Adobe, do you think Adobe might look to migrate that into a future edition of Firefly? Or
I can't comment on what we'll do or not do. I think it's definitely an interesting tool, or at least a concept, and maybe that's going to be part of the content authenticity initiative. Who knows? But definitely there are ways to see which pixels have been modified in a picture.
Right. Okay. An interesting one here. Well, they're all interesting actually. Is there a way to train Firefly on my own images or the photographer's own images? Will it show in content credentials that I'm the copyright holder for every element used in that generated image? And if so, would it comply with the RPS definition of a photograph? You can ignore the last bit because I don't think you know the answer to that yet.
I mentioned in my slides that we're actually working on systems to allow creators, photographers, illustrators, to actually train Firefly on their own images and keep them in their own silo, and either use them for themselves or monetize on that. So sell their style, for X amount of images, or maybe it's a subscription model. You can use my style for a week for X amount of money, And yes, I'm pretty sure, we haven't developed that yet. We're developing it, that attribution will follow the images. Yes, right. Okay. But maybe not the copyright, because basically what that will enable me to do is, if you, Simon, you have all of your photographs training Firefly and you have that specific Simon style of yours, I would of course apply the Simon style to my own images. Okay, that's the whole point, right? To have that artistic flair inside of my image, to make them look like your style. But
right, you're very flattering for me. So
but I've paid you for your style.
Yeah.
So I haven't been stealing.
Okay. Last question on this section before we move on to the future bit. If 10 people around the world put in exactly the same prompt command, would they all get the same exact 4 images created by Firefly?
They're always different, and it's super hard as well for me. Like in a demo, like every time we use the same prompt, there is no guarantee that the image will actually be the same. So basically, the way it works, the only way you can go back to your, basically they're called seeds. And basically what happens is that when I create an image, that creates a seed. And I can then, create images based on that seed and create new images. Or I can go back to that image because I know the seed number. But if I enter a prompt, every image will be new.
Right. I'm going to have to broach this subject with you because you mentioned the word subscription model first.
Yes.
And I think Adobe users remember going on to the subscription model from the sort of lifetime license. But
I know.
The question here is the Adobe stock library is fine. It's what's training Firefly. Moving forward, will we have to, as users, have to pay a subscription to the Adobe stock library in order for our edition of Firefly to access that stock library, or will it be all contained within the one subscription package?
This is something that we're still in beta. We're working on a solution that of course there's not a one fits all solution to that. So we're developing a whole bunch of ideas around that. Of course, there will be monetization somewhere. People don't think about that, but creating images, takes server time, and each image has a cost for Adobe. And all of these things, in some way, we will be asking for the users to contribute to that. But in what extent and when that starts, or we don't know that yet. But okay. I think the future will look like something like a freemium kind of thing, like where you have an X amount that you can do, but then if you want more, or if you want higher resolution, I'm making that up right now. I'm not saying this is how I think Adobe will do it. Yeah.
Right. And do you think that if there is monetization in the workflow at some point, that will feed back proportionately to the stock library contributors?
Absolutely. And this I mentioned in my slides.
You did mention it earlier.
Yeah. Definitely. Stock contributors, of course, are very important to this whole process. They've their images have been used to train the model, and we're looking into ways to remunerate all participants in that process. Yes.
Okay. If you could look into the future, which I really appreciate that things are moving so fast at the moment that the future's on us before we even get time to think about it. Where do you think the next big leap will go after AI?
I think AI is already a pretty big leap. And I think AI is not, Simon, 6 months ago, none of us would have been talking about AI and photography for that matter. And it all happened so quickly. So what I'm seeing is for the future is that these technologies will be more and more embedded in our everyday life. Whether that's on your phone, on your computer, in your image generation or image modification applications like Photoshop or Lightroom. But the goal is always to make it easier, to make tedious tasks quicker, and really, I think the one thing that is super important to Adobe, of course, is that we're not here to kill creativity with AI. We're actually here to help enhance creativity with AI. And I mentioned the word Copilot before because I truly see AI as being in my applications. Now it's Photoshop, Adobe Express, or Illustrator, but imagine it in InDesign or where all of the other applications where it actually helps me create my vision quicker. And
okay, so if we pursue the theme about the work of the photographer in the image and the detail, you've shown examples of different castles and putting a river in and different types of seagull, different cruise ships. If we take one element like the palm tree that you put in, What about the shadow detail in that, or even an image that we've produced in camera and we've got blown highlights or we've got blocked out shadows?
Yeah.
Can we highlight an area and say, right, come on, Firefly, I messed up on this shot, fill in those highlights and fill in those shadows?
And Simon, that actually works already.
Really?
So basically, if had I drawn the shadow line, like make it transparent as well, Firefly would have probably put the shadow of the tree in there. I had another example, had another image there that had very warm yellow tones, and the background was a little bit blurry. And there, with a simple selection in that background and putting in the word, I want a sailboat on that sea, the sailboat would actually come in with the exact same colors and tones of the image and the blurriness of the background. So yes, it does understand the image. If I do content aware, not content aware, generative fill on an image where the foreground is in focus and the background is out of focus, and I add something here, generative fill will actually blur it so it fits inside of that background. So yes, there is. It's far more intelligent than I think. Like.
More intelligent than the original photographer.
Well,
more technically competent.
Yes.
Okay. Last couple of questions now. We're getting close to the 2030 cutoff. What type of computer speed or processing power are you using on your machine to demonstrate what you've demonstrated today? Is that typical of a desktop machine at home?
Yeah, no. I have a 2019 MacBook Pro, and that's all I have. And I think maybe 32 gigs of RAM. So but everything that happens with Firefly and generative AI doesn't happen on my computer, right? Yeah. So it happens somewhere else. So basically, what is really required is maybe a good upload and download speeds to make the process seamless. Yes.
Okay, so that leads to another question, which I'll throw in if I may. If I'm creating an image in Firefly, I'm accessing Adobe's stock library. That's coming in, and I'm creating an image. So there's obviously a two-way flow of information here. Adobe is seeing in inverted commas the image I'm creating from that stock material.
Yes.
Does that image automatically then become a component within Adobe's resource to train further imagery? No. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And this is a story that was doing the rounds a few months ago, that we trained on people's creative cloud files, that we trained on people's Lightroom catalogs and things like that. I can say with 100% clarity here, we do not do that. The things we train on are the three things I said: the stock images and content that has lost their copyrights, and some other content that we actually bought the license for to train the model. Yes.
Interesting. Right. Let's see if we've got any last minute questions coming in. Some good compliments for you, Rufus. An outstanding
thank you.
Which I enjoyed very much. I tell you, the tourist removal, I think, is going to be the big takeaway from today.
Try it out.
No, I'm joking.
My main point is, it's fun. Many people say, oh, but this generative AI thing doesn't work on that. But I said, yes, but you have that other tool to do that. Generative AI is not the answer to everything. It's just an extra tool to do things, in a new way. So yeah, like I said, have fun, experiment, be in the know, what's happening in this world of artificial intelligence. And more importantly, join the community. Also in the Photoshop beta, there's a direct link to the Discord channel where there's thousands of people actually talking about this and asking questions and giving advice. So really it is community-based, and we need every one of you to help us do the right thing. And I think we're on a pretty good track to actually do the right thing.
Well, it's 8:30, Rufus, and unfortunately, or nearly anyway, I need to now close this to an end. So personally, it's been phenomenally interesting. Really, I think we're at a fantastic moment in photography and in image making. So on behalf of the Royal Photographic Society, I and the audience, which we were topping 300 for almost all of it. I think one or two.
Well, there's still 285 people watching.
Yep,
so
amazing. I think that's the power of the subject we're talking about and the way it's presented by you. So thank you for that. It's fascinating, thought-provoking. You've shared with us your insights and experience of AI, particularly in photography, which is great for us. I need also to thank Gareth Hughes and Khatija Bale Wood of the RPS Thames Valley Region for getting hold of you and for organising this event, and to our staff members, Dr. Michael Pritchard and Yanina Pilch, for their technical facilitation of the event. Now, before we close, before everybody disappears, just let me please remind you that we have set up an AI hub on the website, rps.org/AI. Couldn't be simpler. Go there to keep up to date with what the RPS is doing and what the sector is doing in AI. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, please keep the dates 9th and 10th of October free in your diary, because the RPS is creating a 2-day international conference exploring AI and photography. And Dr. Michael Pritchard is very central to organising that, and he's been on this call today. So the conference will be held at RPS House in Bristol. It'll be a hybrid event, delivered live at Bristol and streamed online. There is a call for papers and presentations at the moment. It's out there. Again, go to the hub, where you'll also find a list of the themes that are being considered for the conference. And I think if I can just take this opportunity to ask Rufus to keep those dates free, because I think the speed at which AI in photography is developing, I think we need a part 2 of this second RPS presentation on AI and photography. So I think we need to book you for that.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, all of you here, like, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You find me there, Rufus D on Instagram, wherever you roam online. If you have any, other questions or doubts, or just want to.
Great. Well, what we'll do, we'll make sure that when this recording is compiled, we'll just top and tail it, and this recording will be available in the AI hub. rps.org/AI. Did I say that already? I've said it again. So please go there. You'll find this recording there and some other information about it. So once again, thank you very much indeed to Adobe's Rufus Deuchler and to the audience for your very, very relevant questions. I hope I've done them justice in getting them through to Rufus, and that you have found the answers to be interesting and stimulating for our own photography. So thank you very much. It's 2030. We're bang on time.
Thank you.
Brilliant, Rufus. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.